record, but it says I need to ask your permission. So,
okay. So I actually started recording, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Wonderful. Done. Okay, well, I'll get started then. So welcome to Marketing in a Crisis. And I hope you have a nice warm beverage and you're cozy, and we're going to hang out for 30 minutes. And yeah, this is an interesting time. And really what I want you to come away with today is just a sense of like, I know what my message is. I have some really key questions for you that will help you activate what I call your innate marketing genius type. I'll say more about that in a moment, but it really has to do with how you're in service to your people and your deepest why. So let's get started. Ooh, I also need your permission to share my screen. So Felicia, I don't know if it's easy for you to give me some rights over here, but for some reason that went away. Oh, here we go. Yay. Whatever you did worked. Okay. So the first thing I want to share with you, and I'm going to stop and ask you some questions along the way. So just be prepared to unmute yourself. I'd love to hear from you. And if you also want to say in the chat, like where you're located, I just like to know where people are. We already started that conversation in the beginning of this, but it's just fun to know. So if you want to just put your town in the chat and maybe your profession, it's just nice to know who's here. So I appreciate that. So the first thing that I did when this all hit was I reached out to a bunch of entrepreneurs and I asked them, how are you dealing with this? Like I asked them 3 questions. How are you staying centered? How are you connecting with your business community, like the people you serve? And how are you supporting local businesses? And I put all that on my podcast. It's pretty much season 2. So there's like 15 episodes. They're short, they're sweet, but this is there for you as a free resource, just in case you feel like, am I the only one? I mean, I think we're used to all this by now, sort of, but this is just to know you're not alone. So just look for that on Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever you got. Marketing for Humans. Okay, I always like to start by being real. You might have days like this where it's just like, where am I supposed to start? You know, how am I supposed to lean into helping people in my best way, given the circumstances? So here's what we're going to do together to get at that. One is you have an innate marketing genius type, and I'm going to give you a link to figure out what that is. So don't worry if you don't know what your type is. There are 5 of them. I have a 5-minute assessment you can take to just figure that out. You're actually welcome to do it during this program if you want. Some people do that, but otherwise you can just kind of hang out and see which one do I really resonate with. Maybe you probably just know intuitively. Trust that. So, and then we'll look at the strengths of that and how to activate it right now, and then a good next step to take it into action. And these are the 5 types that I'm sort of alluding to already. And if you look at these images, it's like, ooh, am I the lighthouse? Am I the lotus flower? Like, which one am I? So let me just be specific about what I mean. You have a lot of ways of helping people. It's very likely you're in a service-based business. And if that's the case, you have there's just so many ways you could get out there and try to serve your people right now. But there's one way in particular, and I found this over and over and over again, where you come alive in service to your clients and prospects. And it usually shows up as an archetype, and it also can be your marketing voice. I'm going to help you really identify that and use it today. And really what I've come to recently is it's your deepest why. Like, what if you could operate from your deepest why when you put your marketing together, when you reach out to your people? Here are the 5 types. So nurture, adventure guide, door opener, steady presence, and celebrator. And it's like, you can just, again, I always love to encourage people to be intuitive. It's like, I bet I'm a celebrator. And I also want to say that you are going to have aspects of all of these in yourself. What I'm looking for is your deepest why, right? Because that will drive you, it'll fuel you, it'll just propel you and focus you. And again, there's the assessment, which is in the chat, but also you can go to innatemarketinggenius.com and press the big pink button and you'll get there as well. All right, let's start. So type number 1 is a nurturer. Now, in this kind of interesting situation, a lot of people think they should be nurturers. Here's how you know you are one. When you bring sanctuary to other people so that they can thrive, and that can come in many different forms, and it actually energizes you, that's how you know you're a nurturer. So your big why is making it safe for other people to thrive. That's what gets you up in the morning. And your big how is you lean in and you create that sanctuary. You've got that gift so that your people can thrive. Now, a lot of people will think, oh, that's so feminine and wow, but you could be this guy and be a nurturer. It all has to do with your motivation. So here are your strengths. And a lot of times nurturers, for some reason, have a tough time owning these. So here's your pep talk. You create sanctuary, you bring warmth to a situation. You help others relax and open up. You provide a human touch to the process. You create community. You get people's trust. You show up and you change the vibe in the room. You meet people in their pain. You can be very real about that, and you bring relief in a challenging moment. And all of this, by the way, will be included in, like, if you do the assessment today or within the next 24 hours, I will send you the marketing report with all this information in there. So it's usually $37, but I'll just send it to you. Your marketing direction in general is, again, be real. Like, be honest and open about the suffering that they're going through. You don't have to come with the solutions right out of the gate. Offer examples of similar situations, give us case studies or whatever you got, and then you offer relief, either through your own services or just something you do in your talk or however you're communicating. And it's absolutely key that you nurture yourself. A nurturer that doesn't nurture themselves, I don't know what to tell you. So it's very powerful for you to know how you nurture yourself. I have an entire module that I've created for that in a program for nurturers. So that's really, it's very powerful. So let me just pause here. Here's where you get to unmute yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Given what you hear about what a nurturer is, what do you see that they bring to a crisis? What's the value they bring to a time like this? And there's no right or wrong, just I'd love to hear from you.
I think they bring calm and steadiness.
Yes. Thank you.
Also bring confidence to get through it, you know, to just feeling like they, you know, helping people stay stronger helps them feel like they can get through a crisis.
Okay, thanks, Anne. Yeah, well, I'll just riff on what you guys say. You calm people down. And you know what? I've heard that your IQ literally loses points when you're stressed, right? Your amygdala is on high alert and your capacity to process goes down. So when people calm down, you actually can make better decisions. So here's how you activate it in a crisis. I have two big questions for you. You definitely want to write these down. These are not going to be in your report. These are kind of new for this crisis time that I created. Okay, number one, how am I making it safe, or what am I making it safe from? Let me break that down. So if you think of your clients, what are the monsters that you're protecting them from, right? It could be inner monsters like limiting beliefs. It could be outer monsters like the crazy of what's going on right now. Like, it could just be a lot of different monsters. So that's number one. What am I making it safe from? And two is, what am I making it safe for? That's why it's just like for and from. Another way to put that is, if your client is the hero of their life, or will be by, engaging you, what does it look like when they are the hero? Like, what does it look like when they thrive? So those two questions are biggies, and it's worth just taking some time to sit with them and letting yourself, just breathe into them, and they will just get you focused in on your way with the value that you bring. So here are some examples of nurturers on their game during this time. So number one is an art studio owner / intuitive reader who, right on that first weekend, offered a calming meditation on Facebook Live. Like, it was a really big gathering, very powerful. We all needed it. It was very nurturing. And he's actually been a client, so I know he's a nurturer. and that was him in action. I'll also throw my own podcast into the mix because I am a nurturer. And the reason I did those interviews is to help you know that you're not alone. So that's another, my motivation there. So thank you. Thank you, nurturers, for bringing the sanctuary and safety in a situation like this. All right, let's go into the next type, the adventure guide. So, okay, adventure guides usually get some pushback because you see what's possible for other people way before they do, like the big adventures they could be going for, and you empower them to reach for them by going for things yourself. You're bold. So your big why is you want people to achieve their big picture goals, and the how of it is not pushing, because that's easy to do. It's easy to push people. Your big how is go for your own healthy life adventures, like go for your big goals. You might think that adventure guides are always going to look like this dude, but it could be this dude. It just depends on like the motivation, like I said. So your strengths are these. You're aware of what's possible for the people around you. You embrace your own adventures. You live by example. You help others live it to the fullest, right? Just being around you when you're doing that inspires us to reach further. And like I said, your adventures inspire us. So here are your general directions in marketing. We are much more interested on what you see on the horizon than we are in your expertise. Like you don't need to regale us with, like we kind of take that for granted actually. We're much more compelled by, wow, like I didn't even think of going for that. Let's say you're like a real estate agent helping first-time home buyers, like you could reach for more. That is an adventure guide showing what's possible. Okay, so you've heard what an adventure guide is, right? So they take bold action to inspire their community. They see the big things on the horizon. What do you think they bring to a crisis or a situation like we're in now? And I'd love for you to unmute yourself and just let me know what you think. I'm curious.
I would say possibility and vision.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Yeah.
They push you to tackle new challenges with your project.
Thank you, Shay. Yeah, so you basically see the big truths, the big possibilities in your community, and you're bold when a lot of people would hold back, and you take action. So here's how you activate your inner adventure guide in a crisis. Number one, what is possible now that most people are not seeing? What are those big goals that we could be reaching for that we haven't even thought of yet, but you see it? So that's number one. Number two, what is a bold move that would move you forward as a human? Like what's the healthy adventure, the big goal that you could be reaching for right now? Because when you do that, it really, things happen. And what's the bold truth that you haven't addressed openly yet? This is not the time to hold back with those. It's really the time to speak your bold truths. And let me show you an example. So there is a dear friend of mine has a podcast about the Enneagram. It's called The Art of Growth. And when this first started, I was hitting that paralysis/confusion, just like everybody else. And just listening to this one paragraph got me into action from one day to the next. And I did those podcasts. I reached out to my clients, and I'm doing these talks. I've done this talk about 15 times now, and it's very much due to what he said. And here's what he said. Often crisis is a call to live in a new way. It's a call to live the thing you always knew you were supposed to do at a depth you were never prepared to do it. And sometimes when you do that, there's incredible fruit that comes out of it because now you're battle tested. There's a deepening appreciation of your own capacity when you handle something well. One thing you don't want to come out of this thing with is regret. You don't want to look back at this thing and say, wow, I let that thing rob everything in my life for 3 weeks or 3 months or however long. Instead, you want to say, nope, I did these steps and it helped me go in this direction and it was helpful. That is an adventure guide, leaning in to their real, like in service to others. So adventure guides, thank you. Thank you for your boldness in a time of fear. The third category or type is the door opener. These are the natural educators. You see things from many different perspectives, which is really a generous offering to us in a time where it's easy for us to get fixated on one way of seeing something. So your big why is possibilities and perception. It's just like, oh my God, you could open up all kinds of new worlds just in the way you look at things, right? And then your big how is you educate, you open up those worlds of perception. And you could look like this, like, oh, look at all these dynamic people in a beautiful co-working space. Or you could look like this. You just never know. I always like to just, you know, it's not about what we might think they look like. It's the inner motivation. Okay, so your strengths. You're the one who explores uncomfortable perspectives. You're the brainstormer, blowing our minds. You constantly learn, you start new things, right? There's just a lot of energy, like thought energy. And your general direction in marketing, because you could throw 50 different ideas out at us, my challenge to you is to offer one thing at a time, give examples, and then let us dip our toe in the water with a low risk way of doing that. So the door opener in a crisis. Natural educators looked at things from many different perspectives. I would love for you to unmute yourself and share, hey, if you have a door opener in your life or you are one, what do you think they bring in a crisis?
Comfort.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.
Connections to services.
Yep, and who just said that?
Amber Wilder.
Amber. Thanks, Amber. Yeah, and I will say this, again, easy to get stuck into a viewpoint when you're in fear and confusion. Door openers will not let us do that. You're not stuck in one viewpoint and you're generous with all your perspectives. So here's how you activate it in a crisis. And again, if you are a door opener, this is where you write stuff down because this is not in the report I'm sending you. Okay, number one, what is the challenge closest to home? There are a lot of things that you could address. And this is the reason that you need to be calling your clients and prospects probably more these days, just to see what their real challenges are. So just identify what that is. What is the biggest thing in your community? And then once you determine that, what are the 5 ideas that would help? Go and be that expansive thinker, right? Come up with all the perspectives you want. And then go take a walk with your dog or do some yoga and land on that one idea, right? Allow yourself to breathe and just, okay, so what's the big one? What is the one that's the most important that you'd like to develop? Followed by, how would you like to communicate about that? That's pretty much it. That should be the fun part. Like once you get the one, then it's like, all right, do I want to do some Facebook Lives or this and that? Yeah. So one life coach that is a client of mine who is one of the smartest people I know, he offered like 7 different things for his community to help during this time in one email. And so we had a conversation where I just said to him, you know, as your marketing consultant, let me just say, maybe send one thing per email. And he just laughed. He's like, yep, that's what I do all the time. Because he's a door opener. It's just easy to do. So door openers, thank you. Thank you for getting us unstuck from old perspectives. We really appreciate it. 4th category, the steady presence. All right, you are the calm in the storm, right? Like your big why is you just want people to know they have what they need to move forward. And you assure people, here's how you do it. You assure people with your depth of knowledge, your deep network of people, your resources in general, and your overall calming presence, right? And you could be these guys who are, to me, very obvious steady presences, but you also could be her, right? Like, again, I just want to bust open. It's not about the identities, it's about motivation. So here are your strengths. You are the calm in the storm. You explain things thoroughly, and we love that. You have people's back, you go deep, and you get lost in your expertise. You lean back energetically rather than the nurture, and you let people come to you. You have deep resources, network, and expertise. You're a pillar in your community. So your general directions for marketing are as follows. Just show us that you're here to stay. You do that when you commit to your community as a leader, like you're, active in a food bank or in the Rotary or just something to that effect. And then just share about that. And then show us how deep your resources are. Like, what would really help us right now? Show us how rich your network is. Who do you know that would be really good for us to know? And then what kind of expertise would move us all forward? All right, so steady presence. This is that calm in the storm. What do you think they bring in a crisis? Go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear your perspective.
So I think the calm, steady presence is really crucial in this.
Liz, I couldn't agree more.
Sort of a sense that everything's going to be okay. You just sort of have to move one step at a time.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. Yes, I will just, add to that. So you're the pillar we all need. And you have ways of helping the wider community, which we really want to hear about. And you have good data. Like, to me, good data right now is gold. So here's how you activate it in a crisis. Number one, what is the biggest challenge your community has right now? Again, reasons to pick up the phone or do Zoom conferences and connect with your people right now. Maybe more than you think you should. I don't know, right? Like that, or that you want to. It's just good to just keep your finger on the pulse. Then, whatever that challenge is, what do you need to understand better about it? Right? Like, because you're a steady presence, you're good at deep diving. So go do that. And also, what expertise can you already bring around that challenge? And finally, how are you serving your community? That's not a challenge. It's more just, it's likely that you're probably doing something. And we actually would love to hear about that. Sometimes it's challenging for people to figure out a way to contribute. So that's a service to us. So an example of a steady presence during this time, Joe Rogan Experience is, I think, the #1 podcast in America. And right in the beginning of all this, Michael Osterholm, who is the director of the Center for Infectious Diseases, got on there and just said, here's what we need to be afraid of. Here's what we don't need to be afraid of. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. So he just laid out the facts. And it's exactly like, it was just a steady presence right on their game at the time. Very, very generous. And I just want to say thanks. Thanks for being the calm in the storm. We appreciate your steadiness in a time of upset. All right, last category, celebrator. Remember when we partied like this? It's like, let's just stare at this photo like longingly. No, we're not going to do that. So a celebrator is somebody who brings the good life. That is your deep why. If you're a celebrator, you want to bring the good life to others, and you do it in your own unique way. So like I said, big why and your big how. You bring that. And by the way, like again, oh, that's a celebrator, must be a celebrator. But hey, it could be this guy. Like again, if he wants to bring the good life, he's a celebrator. So here are your strengths. You've got your own kind of flair, whether it's fun, humor, the good life itself, style, like you could have this incredible design sense. You enjoy things. You're really good at helping other people enjoy things. You easily share what you love about your work. You get creative, especially when you need to make boring things vital. And your general directions, I'm going to use the F word, have fun. Have fun with your community related to your work, and openly appreciate some aspect of what you're up to in your work. I'm going to give you examples in just a minute. But if I ask you now, like this is the person with the flair and they want to bring the good life. So if you have this person in your life, or you are this person, what do you think they bring to this time? to a crisis? You can unmute yourself.
They bring Zoom happy hour.
Yes, please.
Happiness, hope.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, totally. And I will add another one. You appreciate what everyone is doing to help. I'm going to say a lot more about that in a second, because I think sometimes celebrators are like, do I really have a role in this? I mean, yes, you bring the life and we're desperate for that right now, but sometimes it's like, well, so I'm going to speak to that. Here's how you activate your inner celebrator in a crisis. 1, what does the good life look like right now? It's just time to redefine that. It's very different now than it was 6 weeks ago. So just sit down and define that for yourself. And number 2, which I realize is 5 questions in one, but watch what I'm doing here. Who is doing the good community work? Who sees a way forward? Who has helpful ideas? Who is bringing sanctuary so that others can thrive? Hint, hint. And who is offering steady, trustworthy information? Basically what you're doing, celebrator, is watching everybody else and how they're helping. And then you go and appreciate that with, in your community. That is a really powerful thing for you to do. So here's an example. There's a real estate agent, like 50% of my clients are real estate agents. So Katie Clancy is a top agent in Cape Cod. She's a national speaker. She's the top 3% of Cape Cod real estate agents. I watch her as like a really strong celebrator on her channels. She was also on my podcast recently. Here's what she's doing during this time. She is doing videos about the state of Cape Cod real estate. Now, that does not sound very celebratory, but guess what? The good life is good data to her. She just wants to give people good data so they can make good choices. That's her good life. And then the second thing she does is appreciates the leaders around her. There's a CrossFit in Hyannis where she knows she just noticed they were doing Facebook Live classes like right out of the gate. They just totally pivoted super fast. And she's just very much in appreciation. I also wanted to feature this as kind of some celebrator energy. I'm sure you've seen these kids painting rainbows in honor of the people who've been affected by this disease and those at the front lines. So thank you. Thank you, celebrators, for pointing out the good that is happening in this scary time. So I also, I'm going to share something, but I want to give you a reminder that, you probably have a sense as to what type you are, and I'm going to ask you in a minute to raise your hand. Like we'll do a quick poll when I'm finished. But yeah, you can always take the 5-minute assessment. I'll repost that link in a moment. Anyway, so now you know what type, what they all mean and how they can thrive in a crisis. I also, because this is such a big thing we're all going through, I want you to see how they relate to each other with another big thing that we did as a country, which is NASA. So if you're a nurturer, you're mission control, because mission control, their whole mission in life is to make sure that the astronauts are safe. They make sure that it's safe so the astronauts can thrive. If you're an adventure guide, you're training the astronauts because probably this guy used to be a Marine or a Navy SEAL or something like that, and he's pushing these astronauts to their absolute limit. If you're a door opener, you're running the Jet Propulsion Lab, because if you're going to create engines that are just the most spectacular engines ever, you have to look at it from 55,000 perspectives and keep moving the whole thing forward. If you're a steady presence, you're Isaac Newton or Johann Kepler or any science that created the science it's all based on. So those are the scientists of the ages. And if you're a celebrator, and I really want to point this out, if you're a celebrator, you're John F. Kennedy and science fiction writers who basically looked at the potential of space travel and appreciated it openly to the public, which got everybody on board and the whole thing lifted up with that tide, right? So it is no small thing for celebrators when you appreciate the leadership around you. So I want to offer you 2 things to do. 1, discover your type. Here's the link. And again, if you fill that out by tomorrow, 1 p.m., let's say 24 hours from now, I will send you that report for free. I'm happy to send that over to you. And I also want to give you this opportunity. Let's say you were listening to those activation questions and you thought, you know, it'd be so nice to just sit down with Christina and chat about that stuff. That's what this is for. Let's chat for 15 minutes. The link is in the chat. I will repost it as well. But we'll just go through those questions so that you can target your message now. Because frankly, you're a leader. Your people are waiting for you. If you haven't already, I'm sure you have. They're just waiting for you to stand up and present yourself in service to them and just, yeah, and be real about what's going on. And so really what I hope you take away from this today is, you know, take those questions, answer them honestly, and then lean in, because you're just a powerful leader, and we're excited to hear from you. So thank you so much for coming today. My hat's off to you for continuing to, you know, educate yourself and get organized and all that stuff. I know it's easy to just eat a bunch of M&Ms. So stay safe, and thank you so much for coming. And you can unmute yourself, and I'd love to do a quick poll if you have a sense of which type you are, or maybe you had a